They say power corrupts, but they never met Evelyn Hartley, our HOA president, wielding her clipboard like a scepter and a secret valve system like a weapon. When she marched onto my farm and demanded I tear down my old wooden bridge because it clashed with the resort's vibe, I gave her a polite nod and a sure, Evelyn, whatever you say. But here's the kicker. Some bridges aren't just for crossing, they hide secrets. And when her petty politics ran headfirst into my plumbing know-how, things got gloriously messy. Trust me, this story's about to take a turn you won't see coming. Sunset Lake, my little slice of paradise, isn't big, maybe 2 football fields, but it's the lifeblood for my farm and the swanky Sunset Paradise Resort across the shore. That place, owned by Darren Hartley, boasts $5 million worth of glitz, 50 luxury rooms, 3 gourmet restaurants, and a fake beach for the Instagram crowd. We're worlds apart, me in my muddy boots and flannel, tending crops and fixing pipes, while resort guests clink champagne glasses in designer swimsuits. But we share that lake, the one keeping both our dreams alive. At 10 a.m., a white Mercedes crunched down my dirt road. Out stepped Evelyn, 39, in a sleek black suit, her hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, clutching her clipboard and tablet like they held the keys to the universe. As president of the Pine Valley HOA, she acted like my farm was her personal fiefdom. Which city of the United States are you watching from? Drop a comment and share with us if you have any confrontation with the HOA. Will narrate your story on our channel. Homeowners Association that governs the area where the resort sits. Hello, Mr. Mercer, Evelyn said in a voice that was business formal but condescending. I'm Evelyn Hartley, HOA president. We need to talk about your bridge. I was fixing a fence post and looked up the bridge. What's wrong with it? Evelyn opened her clipboard with dramatic flair. Your bridge is violating our community landscape regulations. It's reducing property values for the entire lakefront area. She pointed toward the resort. Our guests are complaining that the old weathered structure ruins the view from their suites. I set down my hammer and stared at her. Are you serious? This bridge was built by my grandfather in 1994. It's on my property and doesn't affect anyone. You're mistaken, Evelyn replied coldly. According to our new community guidelines, any construction within the visual range of the resort must be approved by the HOA. Your bridge never received that approval visual range. I laughed. Do you know my grandfather died on this bridge? He had a heart attack while fishing. I found him right there. Evelyn showed no emotion whatsoever. I'm sorry for your loss, but personal attachment doesn't override community standards. You have 30 days to remove it. After Evelyn left, I sat on the bridge, remembering my grandfather's words. Son, this bridge is special. It's not just for walking across. Back then, I didn't understand what he meant. Now I was curious. I crawled underneath the bridge and discovered an old metal plate attached to the center support beam. It was covered in rust, but I could make out gears and a small lever. I sprayed some penetrating oil on it, and the gears actually turned when I gave it a test rotation. I heard the sound of flowing water somewhere nearby. I ran around the lake to investigate and found a small channel at the far end, water flowing from it into my fields. What the hell? I wondered aloud. What had my grandfather hidden here that evening? I searched through the documents my grandfather had left behind. I found an old folder labeled Lake System Emergency Use. Only inside were hand-drawn blueprints that revealed everything when he built the bridge. In 1994, my grandfather had installed a simple drainage system. If the lake level rose too high and threatened to flood the farm, he could open a valve to drain water through channels leading to the fields. All it took was turning that lever under the bridge. Smart old man. I thought to myself, but why had he kept this secret reading further? I understood. In 1994, the resort didn't exist yet. This lake originally belonged to my family. When Darren bought the land across the water to build his resort, they had an agreement to share the water source, but legally, my family still owned the actual water rights. I decided to test the system. I turned the lever 3 rotations and lake water began flowing through the channel in just 10 minutes. The water level dropped noticeably. I quickly turned it back. Holy, I whispered. The system worked perfectly. If I opened it completely, I could drain the entire lake in just a few hours. I remembered Evelyn's attitude. Dismissive, condescending, showing no respect for my family's feelings then. I thought about the resort across the lake, with wealthy guests complaining about my grandfather's bridge. So Evelyn wants me to tear down the bridge. I smiled to myself. Fine, but she has no idea what she's about to lose. I called Lyal Da, my lawyer friend Lyal. I need you to check my legal rights regarding water usage and get some cameras ready. We're about to put on quite a show. As I sat on the bridge that night, running my hand over the metal lever, I could see the resort across the lake, bustling with guests, checking in. None of them knew that their entire business depended on a valve that I could control. At any moment, Evelyn Hartley wanted a war. She was about to learn what it meant to mess with the wrong person. The next morning, Lyal Da drove his old Honda Civic to my farm. Lyal has been practicing law in this town for 20 years and knows every legal detail in the area. We've been friends since high school, and I trust him completely here. Lyal handed me a stack of papers. I researched all night. You have full legal rights to this lake. I flipped through the documents. What does that mean? Exactly, it means your grandfather was smarter than we thought. In 1994, when Darren wanted to share the water source, your grandfather had a lawyer draft a very detailed agreement. Darren only has rights to use water for reasonable business purposes, but the Mercer family still owns the actual water source. Show me this valve system, Lyal said with curiosity. We went under the bridge together. I demonstrated by turning the lever and water began flowing through the channel. Lyal was impressed. Was your grandfather an engineer? No, just a smart farmer. He said this lake sometimes flooded the farm during heavy rains. This valve is for emergency drainage. Lyal nodded. Completely legal. You have every right to protect your property. When I turned the lever, partially, a soft, rushing sound echoed suddenly from beneath the soil layer. Near the drainage channel, streams of water began seeping out like something awakening after decades of slumber. I leaned closer, my hand touching the gears that were old and rusty but still meshed perfectly. There was an entire dual-gear system running along the iron beam under the bridge. Bottom, a mechanism both simple and genius. Grandpa, you hid this so cleverly. I tried turning it another notch. The hissing sound grew stronger. The water flowed more forcefully, as if all the lake's pressure was being compressed. I stood silently, watching the system operate, both frightened and amazed. This wasn't just a drainage system. This was quiet power. Kind no HOA regulation could vote away. We tested it for another 15 minutes. The lake water dropped about 1 foot before I turned it back. What if you opened it completely? Lyle asked. I did some quick math. This lake isn't very deep, maybe 8 to 10 feet. On average, if I drained it completely 4 to 5 hours, and it would be empty. This valve buried under moss and memory gave me something Evelyn's titles never could control. Just then, the white Mercedes appeared again. Evelyn stepped out with an even worse attitude than yesterday. Mercer, she called from a distance. I heard you've been doing something weird with the lake water. Lyle, and I walked over to meet her. Weird how? I'm just checking my irrigation system. Don't give me that, the resort reported. That water levels are fluctuating. You're tampering with a shared resource. Lyle stepped forward. Excuse me, Mrs. Hartley. Colby has full legal rights to this water source. Here are the documents. He handed the papers to Evelyn skimmed through them, her face turning red. I don't care about old paperwork. Current community standards don't allow interference with lakefront amenities. Amenities? I laughed. You're calling my family's lake an amenity? Exactly. This lake now serves the entire lakefront community. You can't be selfish and do whatever you want. Evelyn pointed toward the resort. Darren has invested $5 million in that business. Do you want to destroy the economy of this entire area? Lyle remained calm. Mrs. Hartley, Colby isn't destroying anything. He's just maintaining his property. Maintain my ass, Evelyn snapped. And about that bridge? You have 28 days left. Remove it, or we'll take legal action. I felt my anger rising. Legal action on my own land. The HOA has authority over community aesthetics. Will file a lawsuit if necessary. After Evelyn drove away in a cloud of dust, I clenched my fists while Lyle patted my shoulder. Relax, man. She can't do anything to you. The law's on your side. This isn't about the law, Lyle. It's about respect. I looked toward the resort. She treats me like trash treats my grandfather like he never existed. Treats our family history like garbage. Lyle could see I was upset, but worried about what I might do. You're not planning anything stupid, are you? I smiled. Mysteriously stupid. No. Strategic. Maybe. That evening, I observed the resort from a distance. Guests were swimming, boating, and dining by the lake. Everything depended on this lake water. I wondered if they knew who actually owned the water source. A group of influencers were setting up ring lights for their content shoots, using my lake as their backdrop without permission. The anger bubbled up inside me. Why were my values and my grandfather's legacy considered trash just because they weren't luxurious? These people came here, spent money for a few days, and acted like they owned the place. They looked at my bridge. In my family for generations, we had worked it, protected it, loved it long before their resort existed. Now they wanted to erase us completely, make us invisible, so their pictures could be prettier. I called Lyle with a legal question. If I drained the lake to protect my farm from flood risk, would that violate anything? What? Why would you? Lyle realized what I was thinking. Colby, don't do anything crazy. Just answer the question, counselor. Lyle sighed. Technically, no. You have the right to protect your property, but good. And if the resort gets affected, that's their problem. Colby, yes or no? Lyle, after a long pause, yes. Hand across the metal lever. Sometimes you have to make enemies to protect what matters. That night, peaceful and beautiful, I thought about my grandfather. Old man, you built this system for protection. Now it's time to use it for justice. I texted Lyle. In 28 days. Me to destroy the bridge. She was actually destroying her entire empire. During the second week, Evelyn wouldn't leave me alone. She sent certified letters threatening to take pictures of the bridge from every angle as evidence. I just observed without reacting. Every time Evelyn came by, I was polite and cooperative. Yes, Mrs. Hartley, I'll remove the bridge. I just need more time to figure out the logistics. Evelyn was suspicious. What logistics? It's just a wooden bridge. This bridge connects to my irrigation system. A man of my word, I began studying the resort's daily routine. Mornings, guests had breakfast by the lake, kids swimming, midday boat rentals and fishing tours. Evenings, full lake water. I noticed the resort pumped water from the lake to fill swimming pools, water gardens, and decorative fountains. I estimated about 5,000 gallons per day. Without lake water, their operating costs would skyrocket. On the 10th day, I spotted a black SUV parked at the corner of the road, about 300 feet from my house. Tinted windows, engine idling softly. I stepped onto the porch, pretending to casually sweep the yard. The vehicle didn't move. By evening, I discovered strange footprints around the drainage valve. Someone had been down there, checking the system. Evelyn clearly didn't trust me. The next day, a man in a white shirt, wearing a name tag, reading Community Compliance Officer, came knocking at my door. Hello, Mr. Mercer. I've been sent by the HOA to inspect all irrigation infrastructure related to the bridge. I smiled politely. Feel free to inspect, but don't touch the system. It's very sensitive. The psychological battle was no longer just words back and forth. It was every glance, every covert action. Evelyn was starting to fear something, and I knew she was walking right into my trap. I also observed the staff patterns the resort employed. If the business shut down, they'd all be jobless during a trip to the grocery store. I overheard 2 resort employees talking in the produce section. One was a young guy in his work uniform, the other an older woman who looked exhausted. If this place closes down, I don't know what I'll do, the young man said quietly. My wife just had a baby, and this job was our only steady income. The older woman shook. Are going with all this bridge drama? I pretended to examine the apples while listening. These weren't wealthy tourists or entitled management. These were working people. We're neighbors. I saw them every week at the diner, at the gas station. Suddenly, it felt less like strategy, more like betrayal. But generals don't flinch in battle, and me, for the first time, unlike Evelyn, Darren seemed nervous and apologetic. Hey Colby, I'm Darren. We haven't properly met. He extended his hand, and I shook it. Hello Darren, your resort is very impressive. Thanks man. Look, about this bridge situation. Evelyn can be a little intense. Sometimes maybe we could work something out. I was interested. What do you have in mind? Darren looked. Discussed this with your wife? Well, Evelyn thinks compromise shows weakness, but I think we could find some middle ground right then. Don't try to manipulate my husband. 15 days left. Darren followed his wife. Like a puppy, not daring to argue, I realized that Evelyn completely controlled. To be weak, fine, but I wouldn't pity him when everything hit the fan. I called Lyle. Can you set up cameras around the lake? Lyle was suspicious, but agreed fine. But, Colby, promise me you won't do anything illegal. I promise everything. I set up 4 cameras, 1 at the bridge, 1 at the resort, and 2 at different angles around the lake. I tested the recording quality, and it was perfect for capturing the entire process. I also called a construction crew to schedule the demolition, but actually, I would handle the bridge. Personally, the crew was just a distraction. On day 29, I sat on the bridge, One last time. Tomorrow the bridge would be gone, but Evelyn had no idea what would happen after that. I remembered my grandfather. The old man always said, "Sometimes you have to break something to fix something bigger." Tomorrow I would break my bridge to fix Evelyn's attitude. I checked the valve system one final time. The resort would go from paradise to a muddy wasteland. I texted Lyle, "Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bring popcorn." Lyle replied, "Cobby, what are you planning?" Exactly what Evelyn asked, for nothing more, nothing less. I walked back to the house without looking back at the bridge. Tomorrow morning Evelyn Hartley would learn the most expensive lesson of her life: be careful what you wish for. The resort lights reflected on the water's surface, peaceful and beautiful. It was the last night of paradise. Evelyn wanted me to destroy family heritage. Fine, but heritage wasn't just the bridge. Heritage was the power to control water, and tomorrow she would see the real meaning of control. I woke up at 6 a.m. Today was the final day of Evelyn's deadline. I wasn't nervous, just determined. I ate breakfast and confirmed all cameras were recording. All 4 angles were working. Sledgehammers and crowbars ready to demolish this bridge. "Mr. Mercer, actually, I'll handle it personally. You guys just stand by for cleanup." The workers were confused, but agreed. I paid them to wait. At 8:30 a.m., the white Mercedes approached in a cloud of dust. Evelyn stepped out with a satisfied smile. Today she would finally win. "Good morning, Mercer." "Ready to do the right thing." "Absolutely, Mrs. Hartley, as I promised." "The bridge will be gone today." Evelyn was surprised by my cooperation. "Good. I'll supervise to ensure proper removal." "Of course, you want to witness history in the making." "History," Evelyn laughed. "It's just removing old junk." I smiled. "You're absolutely right. Just removing old junk." Darren pulled up in a separate car, looking reluctant. Evelyn had probably forced him to come watch her show of power. "Before we start," I said, "I want to say something." Evelyn was impatient. "Make it quick. This bridge, my grandfather built it with his own hands. Every board, every nail. It's not just wood and metal, it's love, memory, family, legacy." Evelyn rolled her eyes. "Here we go with the emotional manipulation." "No manipulation. I just wanted you to understand what you're destroying." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm improving community standards." I nodded slowly. "Community standards, got it." I turned to the workers. "Guys, start with the supporting beams." The workers swung their sledgehammers. Wood splintered and nails shrieked. The sound of destruction echoed across the lake. I winced with each blow, not acting, but genuinely pained, watching family heritage being destroyed. Evelyn enjoyed every second. "See, it wasn't that hard. Sometimes progress requires sacrifice." "You're absolutely right," I agreed. "Progress does require sacrifice." 30 minutes later, the bridge was mostly demolished. Only the center section remained. The section with the hidden lever. I approached it. "I'll handle this last part personally." Why? Evelyn was suspicious. "This section connects to the irrigation pipes. It needs careful removal." Evelyn bought the explanation. I positioned myself over the hidden lever section. I gripped the hammer handle tightly. My hand trembled slightly, not from fear, but from rising emotion. Wind from the lake blew up, carrying the scent of damp wood and moss. The sun climbed higher, light streaming through the cracks of the bridge, like piercing through the memories of 3 generations. A mother duck glided across the lake, ducklings trailing like commas in a story Grandpa once told me. They always come back to the same spot. I wondered if I would for a moment. My hand hesitated. The ducklings chirped softly, and their mother guided them toward the reeds where they'd be safe, the perfect image of family, of continuity, of things that endure beyond human conflicts. But then I heard Evelyn's voice in my head. I don't care about personal attachment. The callousness, the complete dismissal of everything my family had built. Sorry, Grandpa, I whispered. Then I brought the hammer down. The sound was harsh and dry, echoing like the breaking of a vow. In that very moment, I felt the lever underneath shift, a soft click enough to mark the end of an era. Evelyn didn't hear it, but I knew the entire system had been activated. I raised the sledgehammer and paused dramatically. This is for community standards, right, Mrs. Hartley? Exactly, for the greater good. I smiled coldly. For the greater good. Bam! The sledgehammer crashed down, smashing the wooden platform. But instead of just destroying my blow, also triggered the hidden mechanism underneath. Evelyn didn't notice, but I felt the levers shift. Click system activated there. I dusted off my hands. My grandfather's bridge is officially gone. Happy. Now Evelyn was triumphant. See how easy that was. When you cooperate. I looked across the lake at the resort. Yeah, cooperation is a beautiful thing. At first, nothing was obvious. I cleaned up debris while the workers loaded their truck. Evelyn was taking selfies at the demolished bridge site for her records, but I noticed the water level starting to drop, slow at first, then faster. The hidden drain was working perfectly. 20 minutes later, Darren noticed. Honey, does the lake look shallower? Evelyn glanced over. Don't be ridiculous, but I could see panic among the resort staff across the lake. A pool attendant was pointing at the boat dock where boats were sitting. Lower than usual, a maintenance worker was checking the lake pump and having problems. I maintained my poker face. Well, my work here is done. Thanks for witnessing, Mrs. Hartley. Where are you going? Evelyn demanded. Home project completed as requested. I walked away casually. As I reached my house, I turned back. The lake was definitely lower now, maybe 2 feet. Already resort guests were starting to notice. Confused murmurs carried across the water. Evelyn was still at the demolition site, arguing with Darren about something she hadn't realized yet, that her victory was about to become her worst nightmare. I sat on my porch with coffee cameras still recording. Perfect. I murmured to myself. Evelyn wanted progress. She was about to get more progress than she ever imagined. In about 3 hours, her $5 million paradise would be a muddy hell. 1 hour after demolition, the lake had dropped 3 feet. Resort boats were scraping the bottom, and some were already stranded. The pool maintenance worker was panicking because the lake pump was sucking air instead of water. I watched from my porch with binoculars across the lake. Resort staff were running around confused. Guests were asking questions and pointing at the receding waterline. Evelyn finally noticed. I could see her standing at the old bridge site, staring at the lake, in shock. Darren was beside her, gesturing frantically. My phone rang. It was Evelyn Mercer. What did you do? I removed the bridge as you requested. Project complete. The water, the lake is draining. Really? Huh. Maybe there's an underground leak somewhere. Don't me? You did something, I replied innocently. I did exactly what you asked. Removed old junk. Remember, 2 hours in the lake was down 5 feet. The resort's lakefront restaurant was now 20 feet from the water. The expensive boat dock was high and dry, with boats tilted awkwardly in the mud. Guests were demanding explanations. We paid premium rates for lakefront rooms. What happened to the water activities? This is not what was advertised. I could see resort staff scrambling. Some employees were quitting on the spot, not wanting to deal with angry customers. The front desk was swamped with Complaint calls by noon, hashtags like Lake Gone and HOA Disaster had hit trending topics. Online time-lapse videos of the lake draining in 4 hours spread rapidly on social media with over 2 million views. A content creator posted a vlog. "This is the worst vacation of my life. Luxury resort turned into swampland." In just hours, local news stations were broadcasting live from the scene. A national news crew arrived by afternoon. They interviewed a family from Colorado who had traveled here for vacation. "We came here based on the website, advertising and artificial beach and water activities," the father said, gesturing at the muddy wasteland. "Now it's just a swamp full of dead fish. Our kids are traumatized." An influencer couple had booked the resort for content creation. The bride-to-be was now live streaming her legal threats. "Instead of vacation photos, I'm suing. This isn't luxury, this is negligence. We paid for water views, we got a mud pit. My lawyer is already drafting papers." Her stream had 50,000 viewers, all watching the meltdown in real time. The comments section exploded with legal advice, environmental concerns, and heated debates about property rights. Within hours, "Sue the HOA" and "Colby the Drain Slayer" trended nationwide. The story had legs. Now environmental groups called it an ecological disaster. Property rights advocates called it justified resistance. Cable news picked up the story. "Small-town man drains entire lake and property dispute" ran as breaking news. I had become a symbol for something much bigger than a bridge. Evelyn called again. "Stop this immediately. Stop what I'm not doing anything. You're draining the lake. Somehow prove it. I'll sue you for what? Removing my own bridge on my own property." Evelyn was speechless. She realized the trap I had set. 3 hours in the lake was down 7 feet. The bottom was muddy, smelly, and full of debris. Dead fish were everywhere. Swans were confused and honking distressfully. Lyle arrived at my house. "Jesus Christ, Colby, what have you done?" "Exactly what Evelyn asked for the whole lake." Despite himself, "Your grandfather was a genius, but, Colby, this is the nuclear option. Evelyn treated my grandfather like trash. Now she understands the consequences." Across the lake, there was chaos. Resort guests were checking out in droves. Tour buses were leaving half-empty. Staff struggled with luggage on slippery, muddy paths where the boat dock used to be. Darren was running around like a headless chicken trying damage control. Evelyn was screaming at everyone. Staff, guests, anybody within range. For hours, in the lake was almost completely drained. A local news van pulled up. Someone had tipped them off about the mysterious lake disaster. A reporter was interviewing confused resort guests. "We came for a romantic lakefront weekend. This looks like an environmental catastrophe," I noticed. Evelyn trying to avoid the cameras, hiding behind her Mercedes. Darren was forced to give a statement. "This is a temporary issue. Technical difficulties. Full refunds are available." The stock value of Wilson Resort Group was dropping in real time. Social media was exploding with photos of the dried-up lake, stranded boats, and confused wildlife. I felt momentary guilt seeing the environmental damage, but I remembered this was temporary. I had control. Nature would recover when I restored the water. Evelyn drove to my house like a maniac, nearly crashing into my fence. She stormed out with smeared makeup and messy hair. It was the first time I'd seen her looking less than perfect. "You psychopath. You destroyed everything." I remained calm. "On my porch, I destroyed old junk as you requested a $5 million business, 50 jobs. You ruined the entire community. I improved community standards, according to your exact words. Evelyn realized I was using her own language against her. What? Do you want to stop this? What are your terms? I pretended to think, what do I want? I stood up and walked to the edge of my porch. I want respect. Fine, I respect you. Now fix this. Do you, though really okay? Evelyn was desperate. I was wrong. I disrespected your family, your property, your feelings. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry, please. People are losing their jobs. I studied her face. Real tears, real panic, maybe the first genuine emotion I'd seen from Evelyn. Apology noted, but sorry doesn't undo damage, does it? What do you want me to do? I considered my options. I could end this now, restore the water, be the merciful winner, or I could teach Evelyn a lesson she would never forget. Here's the deal. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. public apology in front of all resort staff, remaining guests, and media. Acknowledge that you were wrong to demand destruction of family heritage. Promise never to interfere with my property again. Fine, done, I'll do it, and resign from your HOA president position. Evelyn hesitated. That's my only real power in this community. Exactly. After a long pause, Evelyn weighed her options. Pride versus business, survival. Okay. I resign. I nodded. Good public apology. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Resignation effective. Immediately. Do this sincerely, and I'll restore your precious lake. Evelyn drove away, defeated. I watched her taillights disappear, then looked at the empty lake bed, moonlight on mud debris and confused wildlife. Tomorrow, Evelyn Hartley would eat humble pie in front of everyone, but I wondered, would it be enough? Had I gone too far or not far enough? Evelyn had destroyed my family bridge. I had destroyed her entire world. Tomorrow we would see if she had learned her lesson or if this war was just beginning. I woke up at 6 a.m. today. Evelyn was supposed to make her public apology. I wondered if she would actually show up or try to run away outside. The lake bed was completely dry. The smell was terrible. Rotting fish, stagnant mud, and decades-old garbage exposed to the air. It was an environmental disaster zone. I felt a spike of guilt. This had gone further than I'd intended. My grandfather's system had worked too well. At 7 a.m. news vans were already setting up. Word had spread overnight about the mysterious lake disaster. National media was interested in this story of a small-town lake vanishes. Overnight, I realized this was bigger than local drama. Now the whole country was watching. My phone rang. It was Lyle Calabi. You need to restore that lake today. The EPA is getting involved. Environmental groups are protesting. This is becoming a federal issue. At 9 a.m. a crowd had gathered at the empty lakebed. Resort staff, remaining guests, media, and curious locals were all waiting for the promised apology. At 9:15 a.m. there was no Evelyn. Darren approached me, looking broken. She's not coming. What? Evelyn left town this morning. She packed everything and drove away before sunrise. I was shocked. She ran. She left me a note saying, "Fix your own mess." Darren was defeated and broken. She abandoned everything, the business, our marriage, all responsibility. She just disappeared. The crowd was murmuring and cameras were rolling. The story was becoming HOA president flees after environmental disaster. I realized that Evelyn had chosen pride over responsibility. It was the ultimate coward's move. Without Evelyn's cooperation, I had no choice but to restore the lake myself. I had never intended permanent damage, but removing water was easy. Restoring it was complex. I needed to redirect drainage and rebuild natural flow patterns. It could take weeks. Meanwhile, the consequences were mounting. The resort was facing bankruptcy because insurance didn't cover intentional drainage. 50 employees were now jobless. The local economy was collapsing. Environmental groups were suing everyone involved. The EPA was investigating potential federal crimes. I was becoming the villain in the media narrative. Bitter neighbor destroys lake over property dispute. Lyall was panicked. They're talking about criminal charges, environmental terrorism, federal prison time. Local sentiment was turning against me. At first, people had sympathized because Evelyn was unpopular, but seeing the economic devastation, opinions were shifting. An elderly woman confronted me at the grocery store. My son worked at that resort. Now he's unemployed because of your petty revenge. The hardware store owner refused to serve me. 50 families lost their income because you couldn't handle one rude woman. A restaurant owner was angry. This community depends on tourism. You killed our main attraction. I realized that my war with Evelyn had hurt innocent people. The collateral damage was too high. Even Lyall was distancing himself. I can't represent you if federal charges are filed. It's a conflict of interest. I was isolated, a community enemy. Evelyn had escaped the consequences, but I was trapped in the mess. Darren came to my house, desperate pleas. I know you hate Evelyn, but the resort employees don't deserve this. I'm trying to restore the lake. It's complicated. No, you don't understand. Darren sat down heavily. Evelyn, she was planning to leave anyway. What the resort has been losing money for the past 2 years. She was looking for an exit strategy. Your stunt gave her the perfect excuse to abandon everything and blame you. I was stunned. She played me. Evelyn is always 10 steps ahead. She probably knew about your water system and goaded you into using it. Now she's free and you're holding the bag. I realized I had been played perfectly. Evelyn got what she wanted, an escape from a failing business. Meanwhile, I had become public enemy number 1. I sat silently in my house. The radio was still talking about the mysterious, disappearing lake, as if I were a character in a science fiction movie. I picked up an old photo of my grandfather. The picture of him standing on the very bridge that was destroyed this morning. Grandpa, I've ruined everything I thought about. The people I had cost their jobs, the fish floating belly up in the mud, and the accusing eyes of the townspeople. Evelyn had vanished, leaving me with the consequences. Part of me wanted to explode with rage, but the other part felt relieved. I understood. I had won a battle, but lost my entire life, and if there was still a chance, I had to start over, not to make things right with Evelyn, but with my grandfather. That evening, I sat alone in my empty house. No calls, no visitors. The community was shunning me. Media was portraying me as an tourist. Legal troubles were mounting. I looked at my grandfather's photo. I'm sorry, old man. I used your gift for revenge instead of protection. Now everything's ruined. I contemplated giving up. I could sell the property, move away, and start over somewhere else. Let the federal government deal with lake restoration. But then, I remembered this was family land, my grandfather's legacy. I couldn't abandon it like Evelyn had abandoned hers. Decision time: give up or fight back. But this time, I would fight smart, not for revenge, but for redemption. I called environmental groups and offered full cooperation. I called the EPA and volunteered for the restoration project. I called community leaders and proposed solutions. It was time to stop being the villain and start being the hero. I spent all night planning my comeback strategy, not to defeat Evelyn because she was already gone, but to save the community, restore the environment, and rebuild my reputation. By morning I had a plan. It was risky, expensive, and uncertain, but it was the only way forward. I looked at the empty lake bed through my window. I broke it. Now I have to fix it, not just the lake, but everything. Evelyn might have escaped, but this story wasn't over. The real test wasn't destroying your enemy, it was building something better from the ruins they leave behind. I woke up with a clear purpose. Today began my redemption arc. This wasn't about defeating Evelyn anymore because she was gone. It was about fixing the damage and rebuilding community trust. My first step was complete. Transparency. I called a press conference and admitted my mistakes. I let personal conflict cloud my judgment. My actions hurt innocent people. That ends today. My second step was taking responsibility. I liquidated my savings and mortgaged my property to fund lake restoration. I broke it, so I'll fix it. My third step was community partnership. Instead of working alone, I proposed a joint effort with local businesses, environmental groups, and government agencies. The media was surprised by my humble approach. They had expected continued defiance, but got genuine accountability. Instead, the work wasn't just about engineering and ecology. It was about rebuilding relationships, one conversation at a time. I met with every laid-off resort worker, offering temporary employment on the restoration project. I partnered with the local food bank to ensure no family went hungry. During the transition, I organized community meetings where people could voice their anger, their concerns, their hopes for the future. Not everyone forgave me immediately, but they saw I was trying. I worked with EPA engineers to properly restore the lake. This wasn't just about opening a valve. We needed a sustainable water management system that would prevent future disasters while protecting both the environment and the local economy. The process took 3 months. I was personally involved every day, hauling debris, replanting vegetation, and monitoring water quality. My hands were dirty, my back was aching, but I was showing real commitment. The community gradually softened, seeing my genuine effort. People started helping. Maybe he really is sorry. The young father from the grocery store was one of the first to approach me. I heard you're hiring for the cleanup crew, he said quietly. My wife and I, we could use the work. I hired him on the spot, and within a week, he was training other former resort employees in environmental restoration techniques. The older woman who'd worked at the resort for 20 years became my liaison with other displaced workers, helping coordinate job placement and retraining programs. What started as my personal penance became a community-wide effort to build something better than what we'd lost. Darren surprised everyone by staying and working with me on restoration. Someone has to clean up this mess. Evelyn's gone. Call's trying, so I'll help. He sold the resort property to a conservation trust and used the proceeds to fund job training programs for former employees. Together, we developed plans for a public recreation area that would provide sustainable tourism without the environmental risks of a luxury resort. Just when progress was steady, Evelyn unexpectedly returned. She was driving a new Lexus, wearing designer clothes and displaying obvious wealth. She had been living the good life while everyone else suffered. Well. Evelyn smirked at the restoration site, playing hero now. I didn't react to her provocation, just fixing my mistakes. Your mistakes. I had nothing to do with this disaster. Workers stopped and watched the confrontation. Media cameras appeared because Evelyn's return was a big story, but something had changed. The community that once feared Evelyn's authority now saw her for what she really was, someone who ran when things got tough, leaving others to clean up the mess. Where were you when we needed help? A former resort employee confronted. Evelyn, not my problem anymore. Evelyn replied dismissively. The crowd's reaction was immediate and hostile. These weren't wealthy tourists or entitled guests anymore. These were neighbors who'd pulled together through a crisis, who'd learned that real leadership meant staying and working, not running and hiding. Evelyn realized she had miscalculated. She had expected to find me defeated and the community still angry. Instead, she found me respected and herself irrelevant. You think you won, Evelyn said bitterly. You destroyed a $5 million business. No, I replied calmly. I made a terrible mistake. You abandoned responsibility. There's a big difference. The crowd murmured agreement. Evelyn's power had always been based on fear and division. But crisis had united us. I don't have to stay here and be lectured by a failure like you, Evelyn snapped. You're right, you don't. I gestured toward the road. Feel free to leave again. But this time, nobody's going to miss you. The truth of those words hit Evelyn hard. She looked around at the faces surrounding her. People she'd once intimidated, now standing together with quiet dignity. She had no allies here, no authority, no respect, just the hollow victory of a failed escape. Artist who'd returned to find her kingdom had moved on without her. Evelyn left permanently this time and didn't return. The local newspaper headline read, "Community chooses progress over politics." Lake restoration was completed 2 months later. We held a grand opening celebration with the whole community. The new lake was deeper, cleaner, and more sustainable than the original. Instead of a luxury resort, we had a public recreation area that everyone could enjoy. Local families brought picnics, kids splashed in the swimming area, teenagers fished from the new pier, elderly couples walked the nature trails. This wasn't the exclusive paradise Evelyn had envisioned, but it was something better. A place that belonged to everyone. I gave a speech at the reopening ceremony. We learned that personal conflicts can hurt innocent people, but we also learned that working together, we can rebuild better than before. This lake doesn't belong to any one person or business. It belongs to all of us. The crowd applauded, and I saw faces that had once looked at me with anger, now showing something else. Forgiveness, maybe even respect. The resort property became a community center and environmental education facility. Darren managed it with help from former resort staff who'd been retrained as park rangers and environmental educators. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Evelyn's luxury empire had become a symbol of democratic values and environmental stewardship. A year later, I married Sarah, a teacher who'd helped coordinate the community education programs during restoration. She'd seen me at my worst and stuck around to see me become better. The lake was thriving. The community was stronger than ever. And I'd learned the difference between power and leadership sometimes. Visitors asked about the infamous lake disaster. I told the story honestly. Pride and revenge nearly destroyed. U.S. humility and cooperation saved us. The best revenge isn't hurting your enemies, it's becoming someone they could never be. I became an advocate for community-based environmental restoration, consulting with other towns facing similar conflicts between development and conservation. But I never forgot. The lesson my grandfather's bridge had taught me real. Power isn't the ability to destroy, but the courage to build something better from what's broken. In the final scene, I stood on the new bridge we'd built, stronger and more beautiful than the original, designed to last for generations. My young stepson asked me about the old bridge, the one in the faded photos hanging in our living room. That bridge connected two sides of the lake. I told him, but this one connects something more important. It connects people to each other, and all of us to this place we call home. And that's how the war between an HOA president and stubborn farmer ended, not with victory or defeat, but with the understanding